So we're here to have a great conversation about a video that we've made about this amazing story that you've got to tell us, Patrick, which you'll summarise in a minute. Yeah. Dave and I both medical doctors, so we've got sort of reactions to that video, which is sort of from a medical point of view, wow, but also as Christians, we're celebrating an amazing miracle that's happened. And so this combination of medicine and faith is the sort of thing we're looking at right in this conversation.
Yes. Well, back in November 2011, I was diagnosed with kidney failure, acute kidney failure. And as a result, I had to go to Hammersmith Hospital, where I had the renal therapy for cleaning the kidneys, cleaning the blood. And meanwhile, I was hoping and praying for a kidney. And in 2015, again in November, which is quite interesting, exactly 4 years, I got a phone call for a transplant. So I had a kidney transplant, which we celebrated as family 4 years on. And then going on from there, I was having clinics which I would attend in Hammersmith. But it happened in 2019 on the Easter Sunday. I had a revelation where I felt the intense presence of the Holy Spirit upon me when I was looking at the Bible. And in one particular verse that came out, I had this realization that I was actually already healed. And from that moment, I had that conviction, I stopped taking medication from that moment. And 3 months on, because I was on regular visit clinics, I went and I informed the medical team that I'd stopped the medication. And they were, to say the least, a bit shocked.
Bit like us.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I was shocked. That's part of the conversation that's going on. They were shocked, and but they did some obviously tests, investigations, and what was the outcome of those?
Yeah, they were quite amazed when they were doing all the tests. They found, in fact, there's some measure that they use like to check the functioning of the kidney. They found that since then, since I've come off the medication, the kidney function is actually greatly improved and continues to do so. So as a result, they've asked me to continue to come in because they want to further just to test what's going on, because they've never seen something like this happen before. Actually, they said with the medication of the immunosuppressant, the only place where this has happened was with the liver transplant. They've never had a kidney transplant situation where someone has stopped taking medication and they're still alive, you know.
What do you think, Dave?
I'm delighted. Well, I'm delighted you're alive. First off. But I mean, I've been obviously talked about this briefly before, and I'd heard some of the news and been celebrating it. Obviously, I only just watched the video of your story and testimony a few minutes ago, and it's just amazingly moving. And so my first response is always just to celebrate with you. You know, we're part of Eastgate, we're part of the same church family, we're friends.
Yeah.
You know, your sons are in the youth group that I help. We both help.
Yeah.
And so my first response is always just to celebrate and go, wow, that's amazing. And so I celebrate, you know, what God's done. I celebrate your faith, and I celebrate that you're well. I'm loving that your creatinine levels are coming down, that you've got graphs literally right there that you've shown.
You've got them here.
Just show me just there.
Let's put them on camera there.
Yeah. Literally, since coming off the medication, your renal function has improved.
Yeah.
Just about returned to normal levels, hasn't it? It's extraordinary.
There. And what I loved is, I mean, we've celebrated your story, I think, for a number of years. So, and both the medical interventions and the miraculous. So when we heard that you were on, you'd got a donor, that you were going to receive a kidney transplant.
Awesome.
We were celebrating. Eastgate was celebrating.
Yes.
It was the greatest news when you told me it was done, and then the first time I saw you after that, I still remember that, and so I'm celebrating all that the medical profession has done for you. And now I'm celebrating the bit that God's done that we couldn't, which is amazing. I think, as Dad said, there are a huge number of questions this throws up. We're honest. Like, I mean, Dad, you said when you first heard this, you were like, right, don't know what to do with it.
And this video's been produced, and we're going to send it out. I'm thinking, oh my word. Should we, shan't we? This is a great story to tell. Now, it's a great Christian story, but because obviously we want to be working closely alongside the medical world with Heaven in Healthcare, I thought, and actually we had it, we talked about your story at a Heaven in Healthcare meeting, and it was one of the best conversations we've had, because we're having to grapple with that reality that medicine is great and medical advice is really important, and we would always advocate people to follow medical advice now as doctors. But then we have to understand that medicine is limited and God isn't. So God can do what goes beyond the limits of medicine, and it's not our job to stand in the way of that. But it is really important that medical advice is given, and we would hope that people would follow it. And actually, I think the fact that you stayed in the system is really important. You never took yourself out of the system. Yeah. I think we were saying it, that if you come to us, say, a week after you stopped your medication, we'd be going, right. We'd have probably wanted the tests a little bit before the 3 months came up, because we would have wanted to intervene to make sure you were okay. Now, that's not to take away from your faith, but those are the sort of questions that we would be asking ourselves, wouldn't they be, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I say, I'm a GP. If one of my patients came to me and said, I'm going to stop all my medication following renal transplant, I would be like, no, you're not. And so when I heard this, I had this, when we had this story, kind of heard the amazing testimony, I had this dual thought of, wow, I want to share this amazing news with everyone and show how good God is. And then I had a second thought of, I don't want to tell anyone this in case anyone else follows your example. I can't tell people that. And there's the dual thought of, we talked, hadn't we? Said, part of me wishes that you'd told a doctor early on in the stage, but the other part of me is really grateful that it wasn't me that you told, that you were off the medication. That what was great, I think, like Dad pointed out, you didn't cast off the medical system altogether. You've kept your follow up with your consultant team, and so very much still valuing that. But you had a follow-up appointment which was 3 months after you'd come off the medication.
Yes.
Which, yes, as you said, they seemed surprised. I would have been. But now, almost, amazingly so. And I just, so the thought has to be around, I just got to celebrate this. I got to celebrate God. And I've got to, it is that balance. Patrick, I commend you for your faith and the fact that this wasn't something that you did just kind of blasé, I don't need this medication. This was something that, if I'm right from what we've talked about, God really highlighted to you. This is something you'd felt really clear. Is that right?
Yes, I feel the words jump out of the book, which was like, and at the same time I had the presence. I know the prayer when the presence upon me. I know it, and then the sudden, like, it's not like something's opened, or like a book or a revelation has been opened. Wow, I am actually healed. That's what gave me the conviction that to go forward with the decision that I took. Otherwise, I wouldn't just do something like that, because I think it would be crazy.
Well, and I think that's a really important point, that we would say that very specific faith that you get through an interaction with God like that. And we're saying this is not a formula that people just say, I'll do what Patrick did, because it needs that. It needs faith, and now obviously all Christians can move in faith, and you know, we would encourage people to interact with God and get faith, and we're increasing in faith for miracles all the time. And I guess if Dave and I were sitting here thinking, if you had people doing that, and we would be very happy as Christian doctors to you know, have conversations around that, but probably with actually we will be wanting to do a few more medical checks, which didn't happen in your case. Now, we're not judging you at all for that. It's just a phenomenal story, but it does raise lots of great questions for us, and I think it faces medicine up with the reality of it. It does have limitations, and we know that as doctors, and medical advice has limitations to it, whereas God hasn't. But obviously we have to dispense the advice that we can within the limitations of what we currently know, but just to acknowledge, you know, that God goes way beyond that. And it's really important, isn't it, for us that in one sense we want to put those miracles alongside the medical world to help, you know, the medical world to be a complementary service alongside, to ease the burden, particularly at the moment. You know, it's massive. I think it's worth saying, isn't it, also, because we're recording this during the coronavirus time, that you haven't been asked to shield yourself.
No, I'm not shielding at all. I'm working, eat health, strong.
Isn't that beautiful? So the medical world have acknowledged that actually that you're off it. They're not saying, oh, you're in danger or anything. They're saying this guy is clear. He doesn't need the medication. That's a powerful message. And the other side of things is that your wife is a nurse, and so she's not had to be helping you shield, and so she's been free to work within the National Health Service at this time. So that story has had a benefit outside of it just itself.
Yeah, we love that. You know, if you were on immunosuppressant medication right now, the current situation would look hugely different to you and your whole family,
that's true.
As well, and also the clinical environment which Annie works in, that would be impacted. And stuff, and you know that, because we checked, you know, on the current shielding guidelines, you know, solid organ transplant is number one on the list. It's literally right there, it's at the top. That's because everyone with a solid organ transplant needs medication that wipes out their immune system.
That's true.
But you don't.
No, I don't.
And it's amazing.
It is. That's a beautiful outcome of this. You're thinking actually that you are protected, and you're contributing actually, because you've been actually one of the essential workers. You've been helping in the supply chain, so you've been helping the cause. It's quite an extraordinary story, Patrick.
It is amazing. I'm like, wow. It just opens up to the terms where say, for with God nothing is impossible. It just opens and breaks the limit. I think where we're going, wow, it's amazing. And I like it because I with Jermaine, we used to cry before, like I said, why is they not able to play and so on. But now it opens these possibilities with what God can do. So it's quite amazing.
And again, this story just opened up family life for you, because you know, you always have to be careful around infections, but you would have to be especially careful about not, you know, exactly. So the limitations upon your family life have been eased.
Yes.
As the video shows, I love, and you've got to, folks, you've got to watch the video. This it is absolutely stunning video.
It's amazing. I mean, Patrick, I got to ask, when you'd been off the medication 3 months and you went for your outpatient appointment, did you feel a little nervous as to how it might be taken? like, had you rehearsed how you were going to tell the team? Like, how had you planned that?
Yeah, I was nervous. I mean, what's going to be their reaction? I don't know. So, but I said, when I'm there, I just have to tell them going forward. So, so I just told them. So when the doctor said, I actually need to leave and tell someone else to come in. Okay, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's really I need to get the consultant moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they even spoke of, we need to, just to make sure that mentally you are okay and, you know, for you to have made such a decision. And they were happy that, yeah, we think you're quite normal person. We think your brain is functioning well and so on. Yes, you didn't make some crazy decision, but yeah. So we'll just respect your decision.
Yeah, because that's interesting. So they actually made a point of checking that you had the mental capacity to have made that decision.
Yes.
Because otherwise they have to intervene.
Yes.
Which is actually an interesting point, isn't it, around medical advice, actually, because in the times when a doctor can force treatment against a patient's wishes are very, very limited, and rightly so, only in the occasion when that patient lacks the capacity to make a judgment around their own well-being and treatment. And the kind of regulations around medical capacity are very clear that actually patients are allowed to make decisions that a doctor would disagree with. That's almost enshrined within our Mental Capacity Act there. And yeah, doctors we're used to giving advice. Sometimes people will go away from that. There's loads of other examples. In GP work, I have this all the time, frequently, where I'll say to someone, your cholesterol is really high. I'd recommend you take a statin. Yeah. And some patients will go, yeah, thank you, I'll take that advice. And some patients will say, actually, no, I'd rather not. And I'm never offended by that, actually. And
they're willing to take the risk, aren't they?
They're willing to. I'm going, that's fine. That's a choice that you're making. You would prefer not to take the statin. Your cardiovascular risk is higher because of that, but that's your choice. And when that's done right, the doctor-patient relationship is actually really well preserved, because actually again, and it's clear where I say, that's fine, you've not taken my advice in that instance, that's not going to stop me giving you further advice in the future, and I'm not going to suddenly refuse to do other things, because it's really, really important that people have the choice. Now, granted, your choice has more dramatic implications than most of the ones that I come across. But yeah, it just shows that the medical profession it's not an unfamiliar concept.
Yeah.
This is more just kind of the scale of the matter.
Doctors aren't there to dictate, what you do. The freedom of choice is there, and I just thought. Yeah, it is very similar as a GP. We're used to people not following our advice, and like somebody who doesn't take a statin, they're saying, actually, I'm willing to take that risk that I might die, which is actually the consequence. Yeah. But we face that every day. So in one sense, the conversation with you is it seems heightened, but actually it's an everyday conversation. For you, it's just one of those ones. Whoa, that really was a risk. But we have an amazing God who's done something amazing, and We celebrate your faith. Yeah. We celebrate God who responded to your faith. We celebrate this miracle. And I want to celebrate those medical staff, because I think the way they interacted with you with respect and not running you down, and the continuing medical care that they're offering to you, we think that's a beautiful thing. And for us, that's a beautiful example of heaven and healthcare working together for the good of your health and your well-being and the family and for broader society.